Monitoring internal pressure. Grace under pressure. That's Hemingway's definition of heroism. It's perfectly normal to feel inner pressure, anxiety, turmoil, and chaos. Incarnating in what I call the Babylon Matrix, see the glossary of ZAP terms, it's on the homepage of the site, can feel like being a submarine scuttling along the floor of silent seas. You need to maintain your structural integrity despite being under tremendous pressure. Often we blame ourselves or something happening in the local time frame or space for the inner pressure. But simply incarnating in a gravity-bound mortal corporeal body on a planet in a state of frenzied change is enough to cause us to feel intense inner pressure. A close friend, during a difficult life phase, often said that he felt insane. I pointed out to him, and he meant it, I pointed out to him that his reality testing was perfectly intact, and he was functioning rationally in society. His inner turmoil felt catastrophic to him, but actually, it wasn't. It felt that way, but it wasn't actually catastrophic, in other words. He maintained his structural integrity throughout the difficult period, being able to work at a job and take care of himself and so forth. My inner pressure ebbs and flows. There are phases where anxiety and inner turmoil intensify and others where they relax. And often this is just because of the quality of sleep I had. Like I've discovered recently, we have all these biometric devices like the Apple Watch or the Oura Ring. I use both. And they give you these readiness scores. And that's based on like HRV, heart rate variability, and like the pulse you awaken with. And they've gotten better and better at that. And like I will find that like that readiness score tracks pretty well with like, feelings of like inner instability and so forth. So a lot of it is just related to our physiological state. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And the worst way to relate to inner pressure is thinking you need to self-medicate. And this is kind of a thing people fall into, how they fall into addiction is that they do things for short-term mood repair, as one person put it. And that's not a good idea. It's much better to just accept grace under pressure. Accept I feel inner pressure, I feel some inner anxiety, turmoil, free-floating, dis-ease, whatever. But I'm just going to deal with it, and I'm just going to keep focusing on taking the next action and not letting the inner pressure, letting that turn into a catastrophic seeming problem. So my inner pressure ebbs and flows. There are phases where anxiety and inner turmoil intensify and others where they relax. When I was younger and less experienced, I took increases in inner pressure too seriously. The friend I mentioned above seemed to fall into this, and when his inner turmoil increased, he felt something was drastically wrong, either with himself or with his surroundings. When anxiety intensified, his mind tended to focus on relocating to another part of the country as the answer. As an outside observer, it was obvious that the inner pressure would be there wherever he went. It's like you're in your own spacesuit, and that has its own internal pressure. Changing a location probably isn't going to change that. And if you think your inner pressure is because of financial, you can find a rich person. Elon Musk, for example, lives with tremendous internal pressure and talks about that. And he's the richest man in the world. If you think it's because of you're not happy about your looks, we can find you a supermodel who lives under intense inner pressure. Like, it cannot just be explained by, it's a multifactorial thing that comes with human incarnation. So don't buy into a narrative fallacy that it's because of this and it's because of that. And the other thing, there will be trigger events. And, a big one that is kind of, can be seen as a more objective factor is like when you're in conflict with somebody that you're really close to. I mean, that makes any of us feel an increase in internal pressure. But there may be factors in us that set up that conflict, and it's just something we're frequently going to be experiencing in life. There are fluctuations in relationships. Don't let that become such a drama that it takes over everything else and stops you from doing what needs to be done. One way to improve your structural integrity is to allow the inner pressure without thinking something is particularly wrong with you or your present circumstances. We can easily construct a story, a he said, she said, a tale of money woes, etc., to explain the inner pressure. But people in all circumstances incarnating in this pressurized world feel inner pressure. So especially don't evaluate your life or your key relationships when in a state of chaotic inner pressure. You probably heard me say this before if you listen to other cards. If you're going to do these big evaluations, wait until you're in your cognitive best state, and then I do it writing the whole time in my journal. What strengthens structural integrity is recognizing that you can take impeccable actions despite inner pressure. For example, I have a fairly intense fear of heights, which was part of my inspiration to pursue mountain climbing. And when I did, I found that many mountain climbers have a far above average fear of heights. I discovered that even though I was feeling intense fear of heights, I could make it to the next handhold or foothold pretty much as well as someone who didn't have that fear. If the inner pressure feels too great to focus on complex tasks, then use the pressurized zone to clean up your space, do dishes, laundry, etc. Exercise can be a very helpful practice when under inner pressure and has been proven to help moods and states of mind. And cardio. I mean, if I'm under inner pressure, I've yet to do an intense cardio session and not feel that change enormously for the better. Finally, one of the best ways to strengthen your ability to deal with inner pressure is to have the virtual experience of others living with extreme pressure while struggling to keep themselves together. And so what I recommend particularly is my fantasy sci-fi epic I keep promoting, Parallel Journeys, because it's about characters, and you'll get this from the opening pages, struggling under ultimate pressures. And you'll see how they feel about it and what they do about it and how they seek to function under that intense pressure. So monitor your inner pressure, but don't let it rule you.